This didn't surprise me because I expected this, or at least something similar. It was Wednesday and Myra and I were having dinner when she said, "Don't make any weekend plans for us. The girls from work and I are going to the spa for the weekend. One of the girls organized a group proposal. It will be a weekend of mud baths, mud masks, manicures, pedicures, and the like." Fine. Fine. This is all just good. What did you expect? I thought you might want to discuss this. I looked her straight in the eye and said, "You didn't say, 'Honey, would you mind if,' or 'Tom, would you mind if,' or 'Honey, the girls from work are planning a weekend getaway. Do you mind if?' You just told me you were leaving, and I said okay." I put down my fork, wiped my mouth with a napkin, then stood up and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" "To Bud's bar. I'll see if there's anyone there I can play pool with while I drink a beer. I may be late, so don't wait for me." In fact, I wasn't going there. I had a friend at work who had a brother working for an oil company, and he was being sent overseas. He was leaving for a year and was looking for someone to rent his apartment while he was away. I was going to meet Sam and go see this place. If I liked it, I would consider taking it off. Then Myra could enjoy her weekend and upon returning find herself living alone. She wouldn't find someone to hand her papers or anything like that. She would simply find an empty house. I liked Mike's place and told him I'd take it if my marriage was over by the weekend and it was still available. He said that he had another person interested in the place and that this person would come on Saturday at 10 a.m. to look at the apartment. He said he would hold the spot for me until 9 a.m. on Saturday. He wished me luck, and then Sam and I actually went to bed to drink beer and play billiards. Around 11:30 I returned home, and Myra was already asleep, or pretending to be asleep. I just lay down in bed, turned my back to her, and fell asleep. Why was I planning to move? Because Myra was going to cheat on me, if she hadn't already, and I wasn't going to put up with it. If I knew for sure that she hadn't done it yet, I might have tried to prevent it. But from what I knew, I couldn't be sure, and I didn't want to live in doubt about whether she had done it and could whether to do it again. How did I know what was happening? Because I had good friends. 3 weeks ago on a Wednesday, while I was at work, Ralph walked into my office and asked me to meet him at Barney's after work. I met him, and after we took a sip of our beer, he asked, "Are you and Myra okay?" Weird question. I hate to ask this, but I need to know if everything is okay with you and Myra or not. I looked at him questioningly for a long time before saying, "As far as I know, we're fine, but you don't seem to think so. What happened, Ralph?" "Don't shoot the messenger, Tom, but Myra seems to be into a guy she met at the Apollo Lounge on one of her nights out with the girls from work, and I thought you should know about it." I knew what he was talking about. Myra didn't have any real bachelorette parties. She usually stopped by after work with the girls for a drink or two before heading home. It was usually on Tuesdays, and she was usually home by 7, although for the last 3 weeks it had been closer to 9 or 9:30. Naturally, I asked Ralph to explain. Myra didn't know Ralph, but he knew who she was from the dozen photographs I had in the office. He said that he usually meets his brother at the Apollo on Tuesdays and saw Myra coming there with the girls. He immediately recognized her from the photographs. On a Tuesday 4 weeks ago, he was at the Apollo and saw 3 guys join their table. After a while, Myra stood up and danced with one of the guys. She danced with him several times before leaving. The guy she was dancing with came out with her. He came back 20 minutes later, and one of the other guys at the table gave him a thumbs up with a questioning look, and the guy who came out with Myra smiled and gave him a thumbs up. The next week, the guy was already there when Myra arrived and immediately joined the girls' table. He danced with Myra several times, and when she was about to leave, he went out with her again, but this time he did not return. Yesterday, it was the same thing except Myra only had 2 drinks before leaving, and again, the guy left with her and never came back. I do not know what or did something happen when they left, but thought you needed to know what was going on. The following Tuesday, I was sitting with Ralph and his brother when Myra and her colleagues arrived. I wasn't worried about her recognizing me because I was wearing a fake beard and a baseball cap, and we were sitting in the darkest corner of the bar. About 10 minutes after we arrived, three guys came, and Ralph pointed to the tall one and said that this is the guy Myra always dances with. They placed 3 tables together and sat down, ordering drinks. 5 minutes later, Myra and her friends arrived and immediately went to the table where 3 guys were sitting. Myra sat down next to the tall one and kissed him. The group at the table was talking, then one of the guys walked up to the jukebox and started dancing. Myra danced only with the tall one, while the other 2 guys took turns dancing with her colleagues. After about half an hour of dancing and a drink or two, the dancing turned into what could be called dirty dancing. She would have slapped me if I tried that to her in public. When the music stopped, they returned to the table, and Myra said something to her friends, then took her purse, and they left the bar with the tall one. As soon as they left, I stood up next, and Ralph said, "Don't do anything stupid, Tom. Don't go to jail." "Don't worry, buddy. I'm not violent. I'll just watch. At least for now." I left the building just in time to see Myra get into the car with her companion. They greeted each other with great joy. I took a position from which I could not be seen and watched them from afar. They were completely absorbed in communicating with each other and did not notice their surroundings. I was able to get close enough to hear part of their conversation. Myra's date said something like, "That's great," and she said, "Yes, but..." Then off to the parking lot. Moved in another car, and I had to hide so that its headlights wouldn't give me away. When I was able to look out again, I heard something like, "This weekend we..." But again I had to take cover. However, I have already seen and heard enough of everything. When the people from the arriving car went into the bar, I headed to my car and drove home. I was already in bed when Myra returned, and when she entered the bedroom, I pretended to be asleep. The next morning, I was sitting in the break room at work, sipping coffee and looking through an apartment rental guide, when Sam sat down next to me, saw the guide, and asked why I was looking for an apartment. I told him, and he mentioned his brother. I spent my free time Thursday at work making a to-do list and a list of what to take with me if I decide to move. If so, yes, if Myra does go away for the weekend, I'll go. If she gets scared and cancels her trip, I will sit down with her and have a serious conversation. I'll tell her what I know and we'll decide what to do next. If she doesn't go, our marriage might have a chance. Everything will depend on her. At dinner on Thursday, Myra said she would be leaving straight from work on Friday, and I didn't say anything. After dinner, I went into the living room and turned on the TV. About an hour later, Myra came into the room naked, except for her high heels, and said, "Do you want to make love so that I can last until Sunday evening?" She must have been shocked when I said, "No, thank you." She looked at me for a few seconds, then said, "Something is bothering you." "I see. You already know what's bothering me, Myra." "What? This weekend? Why do you care that I spend weekends with the girls from work?" "Girls, Myra. If it was a girls' weekend, I probably wouldn't care," I said, standing up and heading towards the door. "What? What do you mean?" "You're smart enough to graduate from college, Myra, so you should be smart enough to figure it out." "Where are you going?" "On the street." "Come back, Tom. You can't just walk away after what you said. Come back and talk to me." I didn't answer. I just left the house, got into my car, and drove to Bud's bar. I drank beer and played billiards with several acquaintances, and about 11 I went home. There was a note on the door. "Wake me up when you arrive. We need to talk." The word "need" was underlined. I walked into the house, took off my shoes, set the alarm for 6 in the morning, and went to bed on the couch. The alarm woke me up at 6. I got up, put on my shoes, and left the house. I wouldn't look my best at work because I was wearing the clothes I slept in from last night, but I was high enough in the hierarchy that no one would tell me that. I stopped for breakfast at the Village Inn, and over coffee, pancakes, and bacon I planned my weekend. If Myra is home when I get back, we'll have a serious conversation, and if she's not there, I'll call Sam's brother and tell him I'm taking his apartment. I'll leave before Myra returns from her bachelorette party. When I got to work, I told my secretary, Donna, not to transfer calls from Myra to me, and if she wants to leave a message, take it, but throw it in the trash. Trouble in paradise. The worst kind. I noticed a slight smile beginning on her face. Donna had been flirting with me since the first day she started working for me, but I knew it was just office fun because she had a fiancé whom she adored. It was a pretty busy day, and I spent the morning clearing up problems and calming irritated customers. Just before 2, there was a noise in the reception area, and I heard Donna shout, "You can't come in here." My office door opened, and Myra burst in with Donna behind her. "Sorry, boss. I told her that you are not here and that she cannot enter your office. Do you want me to call security?" "No, I'll figure it out myself." Donna walked away, and I looked Myra straight in the eyes and asked, "What do you want, Myra?" She did not retreat, as I expected, but came closer and said, "What do I want? I want to know what's happening to you. First this nonsense last night, and then you didn't answer my calls this morning. I want to know why you didn't wake me up when you came home, and don't say you didn't mean to bother me. I left a note for you to wake me up, and I want to know why you didn't. You knew I wanted to talk to you, so why did you leave home without talking? That's what I want. You know very well why I didn't want to talk to you, Myra. I didn't want to do or say anything that would ruin your weekend with the girls. Is that what all the fuss is about? Are you angry because I'm going to spend the weekend with the girls from work?" "No, Myra, I'm not mad about your weekend with the girls. I'm angry about the weekend you're planning to spend with the guy you made out with on Tuesday night in the Apollo parking lot." "What are you talking about?" "Stop it, Myra. The fact that I told you that I know what you did on Tuesday should be enough to tell you that you're screwed. A good friend of mine came to me and told me how you behave on Tuesdays. I couldn't believe him, so I was there on Tuesday night and watched the show you put on with this guy at the table and on the dance floor. When you left the bar with him, I followed you. I saw you get in the car with him, and I saw what you did. You were so busy that you didn't even notice me when I walked up to the car and listened to what was happening." "You misunderstood what was happening, Tom." "I didn't get anything wrong, Myra. I was there and saw and heard everything. And while we're on the subject, you should know that when you get back from your weekend with the girls, you'll find that I've moved. Now, if you don't mind, I need to work, and your presence is preventing me from doing it." "Oh no, Tom, we still have a..." "Get out of here, Myra." "I'm not leaving." I pressed the intercom button and told Donna to call security to remove Myra from my office. Then I stood up and walked out. I took the stairs to the 4th floor and walked up and down the hallway until enough time had passed for Myra to be escorted out of the building. When I returned to the office, Donna said that maybe I shouldn't rush home after work. She was mad, boss. Perhaps she is waiting for you with a frying pan to decorate your head. The rest of the day passed without incident, and when I was free, since I had nowhere to rush, I went to a bar not far from work. Stopped for 2 beers, then drove home to start packing. I will be busy for the next few days. I wanted to remove everything from the house and leave only what I would need in Mike's apartment. First, I had to call him in the morning and tell him that I was renting an apartment. It was necessary to find a motel or hotel for 2 weeks until he went abroad. It was necessary to go to the bank and divide the funds. I'll take care of the lawyer next week. The main thing for me was to leave before Myra returned from the weekend. When I arrived home, I was surprised that the entire parking lot in front of the house and the street were full of cars. I had to park on the street 2 houses away. When I entered the house, I heard a lot of talking from the living room, and when I entered, I saw 9 women. I recognized some of them from Myra's company Christmas party. All conversations were greatly rushed, and 9 pairs of eyes turned to me. Having no idea what was happening, I said, "Good evening, ladies," and headed up the stairs. Myra, apparently, was in the kitchen when I entered, came out, and said, "Wait a minute, Tom. We need to talk to you here." If it had only been Myra, I would have ignored her and moved on. But "we need" piqued my curiosity, and I turned and walked into the living room. Myra said, "I'm sure you remember Alice, and she has something to tell you." I looked at Alice, and she said, "My husband is in the Order of Eagles, and they have a dance once a month. There are usually prizes at the dance, and 2 weeks ago my husband won a weekend for two at the Belmont Plaza Spa. He didn't want to go, so he told me to find someone to go with me. My problem was who to choose so as not to offend those I didn't choose, so I called the spa and talked them into giving me a group discount, and then invited all the girls from work to go. 9 of us here, and Myra agreed, and we were all getting ready to leave work this evening when Myra told us about your problem. We're all here to try to fix it. According to Myra, you think she's secretly dating some guy, and we're here to tell you that's not true." I looked around the room and said, "I think it's commendable that you all supported Myra in her time of need, but your attempt is misguided. I saw Myra misbehave with my own eyes and heard her agree to meet a guy this weekend. She may have been planning on going to the spa with you, but she wasn't planning on doing the same thing you would be doing. She was going to hang out with that creep who picked her up from the bar." "That's not true," Beverly Marsh said. "We all knew what she was going to do to George. Myra told us about it before she danced with him for the first time." "What was she going to do with him?" "George is one of those idiots who thinks he's God's gift to women. He constantly pesters girls who come to the bar. Myra thought it would be funny to pull his nose and make him buy us drinks. She was deceiving him. She guided him, and when we were planning our weekend, she told him about it and made it clear that they could have a wild weekend together. We all knew about it because Myra kept us informed. A couple of us even hinted to him that Myra might meet him if he tried. We told him that she is ready to cheat on you because she found out that you are cheating on her and wants revenge." "You expect me to believe this fairy tale?" I heard her arranging a meeting. "Yes, Tom," said Myra. "You did hear me arranging to meet him, but did you hear where?" "No, I just heard you say you were meeting him this weekend." Myra came up to me and handed me an envelope. "Read this," she said. I opened the envelope, took out the sheet, and read it. It was a confirmation letter with the names of all 10 women in the room. I shrugged and said, "And what? It just says you'll be there, but I already knew that. You will be there, and he will meet you there." "No, he won't meet me. Belmont is located in Riverton, and Riverton is 163 miles from Addis Villa. Call Red Roof Inn at Addis Villa and ask if George Thomas has checked in. He should be there waiting for me. It will be a long wait because I won't arrive. I would have been in Riverton with the rest of the girls by now if you'd just talked to me sooner. My friends gave up their weekends to help me. Riverton is only an hour away, so you can still have a weekend away. They don't want to go without me, and I can't leave you with such thoughts." "It's easy to fix," I said, and went into the kitchen to make a call. I called the help desk and got the phone number for the Red Roof Inn in Addis Villa and called. They confirmed that my Uncle George had arrived and checked in. I then called the information line again and called Belmont to see if Mrs. Myra Walsh had arrived, and was told that she and her company had not arrived yet. Convinced that they were telling me the truth, I returned to the living room and said that Thomas was in Addis Villa. "So you girls need to hit the road if you want to get some sleep before tomorrow." "I still think I need to stay home and mend fences," Myra said. "No, no need. I've made a lot of plans while you're away with Mr. Thomas, and I need time to cancel them, so I won't be home anyway," I said. But there was no doubt that Myra and I would have a long conversation when she returned home. I was not at all pleased with what she was doing, deceiving Mr. To's George Thomas. "Are you sure you don't care?" Myra asked, and I told her to go away and enjoy herself. After the women left, I sat down with a stiff drink of the best Jack Daniels and thought about the situation. The question was, do I really believe the story the women told me? This could all be true, of course, but it could also be that Myra would actually go to Addisville instead of Riverton. But could she convince 9 other women to support her? This seemed unlikely to me. considering that Myra had been working with most of the 9 for almost 10 years, but in all that time, I hadn't seen her become close enough to any of them that they would lie for her, let alone the 9 of them. I finished my Jack and went to bed. The next morning, I called Mike and told him I wouldn't take his apartment. After that, I went to IHOP for breakfast. While eating, I was wondering what to do this weekend. I don't know where it came from, but suddenly I felt the need to talk to Mr. George Thomas. In my mind, he was the type of creep who, without waiting for Myra, would decide to stay and see if he could hook up with someone else. I called the Red Roof Inn and confirmed that my Uncle George was still registered. After finishing breakfast, I headed to Addis Wheel. On the way, I imagined our meeting with Uncle George. With luck, I might have caught him alone, with no witnesses, and I smiled at the thought as I pulled into the Red Roof Inn parking lot. My smile disappeared before I could get out of the car. There was a Bob Evans restaurant next to the Red Roof Inn, and I noticed Myra leaving the restaurant with Thomas. Directly behind her was Beverly March, holding hands with a man who was clearly not her husband. I took my hand off the doorknob, took out my phone, turned on the camera, and started taking pictures of the 4 of them as they headed towards the Red Roof. I spent some time thinking about my next steps. I decided to avoid confrontation as it would be too public. Even though I knew my chances against Thomas, I couldn't be sure that Beverly's boyfriend wouldn't step in to help her. So I just went home and began to implement my plan. I called Mike to see if his apartment was available, but he said no. I had to settle for a motel until I found suitable housing. On the way home, I stopped at the store and bought a lot of boxes for packing things. When I returned, I packed everything I needed for the move. It took 4 trips, but by 9 p.m., everything I wanted to take out, except the computer and printer, was in the warehouse. At 9:30, I called Marv March and told him the story, asking if he wanted a copy of the photographs I had taken. It didn't surprise me at all when he said yes. I downloaded the photos from my phone to my computer and emailed him all 9. Then I took out my address book and called the husbands of 4 of the 9 whose numbers I had. I told them the story of what happened and said that I hadn't seen their wives with Myra, but if their wives were willing to lie for Myra, I wouldn't be surprised if they ever needed Myra's help to cover up their affairs. The last thing I did before going to bed was log into my online banking. In addition to our joint account and savings account, I had a personal account that I used only for business. All my business expenses went into this account, and all my business expenses were paid from it. I withdrew all but $100 from my checking and savings accounts and transferred them to my business account. I had no doubt that I would have to pay back half when the divorce process began, but I was pleased to know that it would not be easy for Myra until then. I finally called the bank and canceled all of our joint credit cards. This left me with American Express, which I used for business and which was in my name only. Myra had a Visa, also in her name, but with a limit of only $2,300, and she was always close to that limit. Satisfied with what was done, I went to bed and slept peacefully through the night. In the morning, I looked around one last time to see if I had forgotten anything. I then printed out the photographs taken in Addis Villa and laid them out on the kitchen table. He took off his wedding ring, placed it in the center of the table, and took the computer and printer out to the car. I looked around for the last time and left the house. By 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I was checked into the motel. Then I turned off my phone and went to the movies. On Monday, I called work and said that I needed a day off for personal matters. I was at the bank when it opened and confirmed that all my online transactions had gone through, then removed my name from the joint account. Around 4 o'clock, I turned on the phone and, strangely enough, discovered a dozen missed messages and voicemails from Myra. I deleted them all and turned off the phone again. That night, I went to a country bar I liked, and there were a few single ladies there, and I drank and danced until 11, then went to a motel to get a good night's sleep before work the next morning. I was not surprised when I arrived at work and saw Myra waiting for me in her car. I could have avoided the meeting by driving around the building and entering through the loading dock, but I knew that sooner or later I would have to talk to her, so I decided to do it now. I parked in my spot and looked in the side mirror to see Myra getting out of her car and rushing towards me, trying to get there before I got out of the car. But before she could open her mouth, I said, "I don't have time for your nonsense now, Myra. Be at Carl's Lounge at 6 in the evening, and I'll give you 15 minutes to tell your lies." I walked away from her, and she followed me into the building, shouting, "Wait, Tom, wait a minute." I walked past the counter in the lobby and told Harry, the security guard, that Myra should not be allowed into the building, and that if she became agitated, the police should be called. She was trying to get past Harry when I got into the elevator and the door closed. I didn't know if Harry had called the police, but deep down I hoped he had. When I arrived at the office, Donna asked, "Where were you yesterday? Your wife didn't seem to believe me when I told her half a dozen times that you were taking the day off. She came here twice, trying to get into your office to check if you were here. I had to call security to get her out. She seems angry that I was so angry about her cheating that I moved out of her. Temporary quarrel, or are you done with her?" "Finished. When you're ready to date again, let me know." "Why? I thought you and Gary were a strong couple." "Yes, it is, but I know 3 or 4 girls who really like you." "I will remember this, but I'm afraid it won't be very soon. I won't do anything while I'm still married to her, and I haven't talked to a lawyer yet. Just let me know when you're ready." I said I would do so, and then went about my duties. I arrived at Carl's early to have a drink or 3 to prepare for my meeting with Myra. I couldn't imagine what she would say to me, given the photos I had, but I had to get it over with. I couldn't let her constantly call me at work or make a scene. At 5 minutes to 6, I saw Myra come in, notice me, and head towards my table. I thought, I bet the first words out of her mouth will be, "It's not what you think, Tom," and I was right. She sat down opposite me, took a sip of the drink I ordered for her in advance, and said, "You're going too far, Tom. What you saw is not what you think. I gave you 15 minutes, Myra. You can fill them with lies, half-truths, or facts. I don't care what it is, but in 15 minutes I'll get up and leave, and your time is running out." When we left home, I went with Bev. We talked about the situation, and she said she was worried about what Thomas might do if he saw me with the girls again. We decided that it would be best to go to Addis Villa and just tell Thomas that you found out what was happening and confronted me. Then I would tell him that I couldn't risk my marriage for an affair. Bev called her brother, who lives nearby, Addis Villa, and asked him to meet us at Bob Evans'. She wanted him to be there if Thomas decided to become aggressive or violent. When we arrived, I called George's number and asked him to meet me at the restaurant. When he came, I told him that you found out about us and told me that if I go further, I may not return home. I told him I decided I couldn't lose my marriage over an affair. He took it surprisingly calmly, and then Bev and I went to Riverton and joined the rest of the girls. Do you really expect me to believe this bullshit story? Why not? It's true and I can prove it. And how are you going to do this? Firstly, you can call Bev's husband, and he will confirm that the man in the photos with Bev is her brother. Secondly, she said, handing me the phone, I know you, Tom, and I knew that, despite your words, you would always have an ounce of doubt. When we got to the spa, I gave Bev my phone and asked her to take pictures of me doing what I said I would do. I looked at her phone and damn, the pictures backed up her story. While I had her phone, I looked in the directory and found Bev's cell phone and home phone numbers. I called the home number and Marv answered. After I introduced myself, I said, I just talked to my wife and looks like I made a mistake sending you those photos. It's okay. As soon as I saw them, I knew it was her brother. When she returned home, she told me what happened. Are you and Myra okay? I think yes. We'll have a lot to discuss, but I think we can handle it. I hung up and returned the phone to Myra. Are we fine? Myra asked. Yes, but we have a long talk to do as soon as I get home. I'm not at all happy with what you did to Thomas, even if you did it just to pull his nose. I know it was wrong, and I swear to God I will never do it again. Will you come home with me now? We can come back for your things later. Now I just need to take you home to show you how much I care about you." I smiled at her and said, "Lead. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one. Click to the next one."